The rain had not stopped since dawn, drumming on the glass tower as Elena Cruz stepped through the revolving doors, still in her maid's uniform. The receptionist's greeting died mid-sentence. Every click of her wet shoes echoed across the marble floor as if the world was holding its breath. When she reached the boardroom, the men inside fell silent. At the head of the table, Gabriel Stone froze, his eyes fixed not on her face, but on the gold band glinting on her finger, identical to one he had buried with his late wife. Time seemed to bend. The hum of the city faded. What would you do if the past walked straight into your future, wearing a uniform and a ghost's ring? Elena's heart pounded as she whispered, "I'm here for the interview." The overhead light flickered once, and Gabriel's reflection stared back at him from the glass wall, haunted, confused, and afraid. The silence after her words was heavier than the storm outside. Gabriel's chair creaked as he stood, his voice low but controlled. "Miss Cruz, did you come here? Straight from work?" The faintest tremor betrayed his calm. Elena nodded, unsure whether to apologize or defend herself. "I couldn't afford to miss the chance," she said softly. The board members exchanged looks. No one dared mention the ring glinting under the white light. Somewhere deep inside, Gabriel's pulse quickened with a fear he couldn't name. She looked so much like someone he had buried, in spirit, not in face. He couldn't take his eyes off her hand. The clock ticked loudly, like an accusation neither of them could answer. Elena took a seat, the chair squeaking faintly beneath her. The table's reflection caught her ring again, bright, mocking. "Tell us about your previous experience," Gabriel said, though his mind was far from business. Elena's voice was steady, but her fingers trembled slightly. "I worked in private households. Cleaning, caretaking, managing routines. One of them was the Stone residence." The words struck like thunder. Richard's pen stopped mid-note. Gabriel's eyes darkened. "The Stone residence?" he repeated. She nodded slowly. "I was there. Years ago, with my mother." A draft whispered through the room. Outside, lightning flashed, painting Gabriel's face pale as memory clawed its way back. Gabriel's mind unraveled piece by piece. He remembered the old maid, quiet, graceful, always humming a song his wife used to love. "Your mother," he began, voice faltering. "Was her name Rosa Cruz?" Elena's eyes lifted, wide with surprise. "You knew her?" she asked. "She passed away last year." The words fell softly, yet they shattered the air. Gabriel blinked, a muscle tightening near his jaw. The sound of rain returned, louder now, drumming against the windows as though echoing his guilt. Somewhere deep down he understood. This was no coincidence. Fate had sent her. For a moment, no one breathed. The storm outside dimmed into silence, and all that remained was the hum of fluorescent light. Elena's gaze drifted to the gold ring once more, her voice breaking as she whispered, "My mother said it belonged to someone she once worked for. A woman who never came back." Gabriel's heart slammed in his chest. The name rose in his throat, unspoken, burning. Sophia. The room spun faintly, as memories flashed like fragments of broken glass. He stepped back, steadying himself on the chair. Somewhere, a faint echo, a woman's laugh, distant but clear, brushed through his memory. The light flickered twice, and every hair on his arm stood up. The air between them thickened, filled with the unspoken. Gabriel's voice, usually calm and commanding, wavered as he asked, "How did your mother get that ring?" Elena looked down, twisting the band gently as if afraid to touch a ghost. "She never said," she replied, "only that the woman she worked for disappeared one night, and this was all that was left." Every word stabbed deeper into Gabriel's chest. Richard glanced at him, sensing the tension, while Marissa watched in silence, her eyes wide with unease. The rain eased outside, but the weight in the room grew heavier. A faint rumble of thunder rolled like a warning neither could ignore. "I remember that night," Gabriel said softly, his words carrying the weight of years. It was raining then, too. Elena looked up, startled. "You knew her," he nodded once, eyes distant. "Sophia Stone, my wife." The words hit like a strike of lightning, sharp and merciless. The room fell silent again. Elena's fingers trembled on the folder's edge. She whispered, "My mother never told me her name, only that she was kind." Gabriel's expression hardened, not in anger but in pain. For the first time, the wall he'd built around himself began to crack. Marissa stepped closer, sensing the unraveling truth. "Sir," she said carefully, "maybe we should pause this meeting." Gabriel ignored her. His eyes stayed on Elena. "You said your mother worked for us. Did she ever mention Sophia's last days?" Elena shook her head, voice fragile. "No. Only that the house went dark after that night. That she found the ring by the fountain." The color drained from Gabriel's face. The fountain, where he last saw his wife before she vanished. His hands curled into fists as the memory replayed, the night alive again in his mind. The glow of lanterns, the scent of jasmine, and Sophia's laughter fading into the storm. Elena's voice softened to a whisper. "I think my mother was protecting someone." The statement hung in the air like smoke. Gabriel's heart pounded, a flood of forgotten images rushing back. The night of the accident, the phone call that ended everything. Protecting who? He demanded, his tone sharper now. "I don't know," Elena said, her eyes filling with tears. "She always said the truth could ruin a family." Gabriel turned away, gripping the edge of the glass table, his reflection fractured by the light. Outside, thunder cracked again, shaking the walls. When Gabriel finally spoke again, his voice was quiet but edged with something darker. "If your mother had this ring, then she knew what happened that night. And now, you do too." Elena stood slowly, trembling. "I don't," she said. "But I want to." Their eyes met, and for a brief, suspended second, something unspoken passed between them. Grief, guilt, recognition. The storm outside subsided to a soft drizzle, leaving only the rhythmic tapping of rain on glass. Gabriel's next words came almost as a whisper. "Then I'll show you." The world seemed to fall away as Gabriel led Elena down the dim hallway of the office, toward a private room. He unlocked the door with a slow, deliberate motion. Inside, shelves of old files and photographs lined the walls. Memories he had buried under years of silence. "This is where it began," he murmured, his tone distant. Elena stepped closer, drawn to a framed photo on the desk. Gabriel and Sophia, smiling beneath a white gazebo. Her breath caught. "She was beautiful," she whispered. "She was everything." Gabriel replied, his voice cracked slightly. And then she was gone. The hum of rain returned, gentle but constant, like a heartbeat between past and present. Gabriel's voice lowered to a whisper, almost as if he feared the walls would hear. "It was a charity gala," he said. "The night before the accident, Sophia had been distant, distracted." He paused, eyes glassy. "She mentioned someone. Your mother." Elena stiffened. "My mother?" He nodded slowly. "Said she trusted her. That Rosa knew something I didn't." His gaze shifted toward the rain-streaked window, lost in the memory of a night painted in gold and betrayal. "I thought she was imagining things," he confessed, "but maybe she was trying to protect me." The images in Gabriel's memory shifted. "That night," he continued, "Sophia left early. She said she needed it. Air! I thought she'd gone upstairs." His voice hardened, brittle as glass, but she never came back. Elena's breath trembled. "And my mother?" "She disappeared the next morning," Gabriel answered. "No letter, no trace, just that ring, found by the fountain." The rain outside turned heavier again, streaking down the window like tears. For the first time, Elena saw the weight he carried, not arrogance, but grief disguised as power. Elena stared at the ring again, her pulse racing. "You think my mother had something to do with her disappearance?" Gabriel's voice softened, almost pleading. "I don't know what to think anymore." He sat down heavily, the years visible in his slumped shoulders. "I blamed everyone. My staff, myself, even God. But Rosa was kind. She loved Sophia like fam. I can't believe she hurt her." Elena's throat tightened. "Then maybe she didn't," she said quietly. "Maybe she tried to save her." The clock ticked once, loud and certain, like a truth awakening in the shadows. That night returned to Gabriel in full. The storm, the argument, the final look in Sophia's eyes. "She said something before she left," he whispered, as if reciting a confession. "She said, 'If I don't come back, it means I finally know the truth.'" Elena's breath caught. "The truth about what?" He turned toward her slowly, his gaze hollow. "About me," he said. The rain outside stopped suddenly, leaving an eerie quiet that filled the room. In that silence, Elena understood. This wasn't just about the ring. It was about a secret buried in love, guilt, and time. The next morning, Elena arrived early, the storm clouds gone, but the air still heavy. On Gabriel's desk lay a single envelope, yellowed with age, sealed with wax. Her name was written in neat, feminine handwriting she didn't recognize. Gabriel stood near the window, silent. "It was in the archives," he said quietly. "Addressed to you." Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Inside was a letter, signed by Rosa Cruz, her mother. The words blurred as tears welled in her eyes. "If you ever find this, it means the truth has found you too. Protect the ring. It belonged to Sophia Stone. She died trying to save us all." Elena's breath caught. Gabriel's reflection in the glass turned pale. "Save you from what?" she whispered. Elena read the letter aloud, her voice cracking at every line. "She says Sophia found something, a document that could destroy the company." Gabriel's eyes widened, jaw tightening. "Destroy?" he echoed. "My father ran this business back then. Sophia had no reason." He stopped, realization dawning. Unless she discovered what he was hiding. Elena looked up sharply. What was he hiding? Gabriel turned away, staring at the city skyline. Bribes. Labor. Exploitation. "My father built this empire on other people's pain." Sophia threatened to expose him. His voice grew low. "That's why she vanished. She must have gone to the garden that night to confront him," Gabriel murmured, pacing. "Your mother was loyal. She tried to stop it." Elena pressed her hand to her mouth. "And my mother took the ring so no one would know Sophia was there." Gabriel nodded slowly, grief and understanding merging in his gaze. "She must have blamed herself. That's why she hid the truth from you?" The sound of a clock ticking filled the silence again. Elena looked at the letter once more, her voice barely audible. "She carried that guilt for years, and so did you." "Gabriel," Elena said softly. "What if my mother wasn't running away? What if she was trying to keep the truth safe for someone who could handle it later?" He looked up at her, confused. "You think she meant you?" Elena nodded, her eyes glistening. Maybe she knew this day would come. For a moment, Gabriel's defenses fell away completely. "Then this," he said, gesturing toward the ring, "was never just a symbol of loss. It was a promise. Elena took a slow breath. A promise to finish what they started. Outside, the clouds began to part, sunlight washing through the glass, revealing dust dancing like gold in the air. As the morning light filled the room, Elena folded the letter carefully and placed it on the desk. "This is the truth she died to protect," she said quietly. Gabriel stared at it, his voice barely a whisper. "And now it's yours." Elena met his gaze. "No," she replied. "It's ours." For the first time, his eyes softened with something like peace. The sound of traffic below replaced the storm's roar. The past had spoken. Now the future waited. But outside the window, a single figure stood across the street, watching them from the rain-washed pavement. For a fleeting second, Elena thought she saw a familiar face. A woman's, smiling, then gone. The day slipped into dusk, and the city lights began to glow outside the tall windows. Gabriel and Elena remained in the office long after everyone had gone. The letter lay between them like a fragile bridge between two lifetimes. "You don't have to stay," Gabriel said quietly. "You've done enough." Elena shook her head. "Not until I know what happened." Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed a storm within. Gabriel turned away, running a hand through his dark hair. "The truth once set us free," he whispered. "It never does. It only burns." She took a small step closer. "Then let it burn." Gabriel opened a drawer and placed an old photograph on the desk. Sophia standing beside Rosa Cruz in the stone garden. "They were close," he said. "Closer than I ever realized." Elena traced her fingers along the photo's edge. "They trusted each other," she murmured. "Maybe too much." Gabriel's jaw clenched. "My father knew. He must have known." He pulled out another document. A signed confession Sophia had written, never sent. She planned to expose him the next day. He exhaled slowly, pain etched into every word. She never got the chance. "She died for the truth," Gabriel said, voice trembling. "And I let her become a mystery, because it was easier than facing my father's sins." Elena swallowed hard. "And my mother carried that truth like a wound." The silence between them deepened until it felt sacred. Gabriel turned toward her, eyes raw. "I never asked for forgiveness," he said. "Not from Sophia, not from anyone." Elena stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "Then start now." For a long moment their eyes locked. Two broken souls standing in the echo of what others left behind. Gabriel took a deep breath and turned toward the safe behind his desk. He entered a code, the lock clicking open with a metallic sigh. Inside was a small velvet box. He placed it on the table and opened it slowly. Inside lay the second ring, Sophia's true wedding band. "I couldn't bury it," he admitted. "I told everyone I did. But I couldn't let it go." Elena's eyes widened. "Then this one," she looked down at her own ring. "It was never yours to wear," he said softly. "But maybe it found you because you were meant to return it." Tears welled in her eyes as she slipped it off. "Then let's end this." They stood together at the window as the night stretched over the city. Elena placed both rings side by side on the table. "Now they're together," she whispered. Gabriel nodded, his voice breaking. Maybe they always were. The reflection of the two rings glowed faintly in the glass, two circles of gold against the endless dark. "Thank you," he said finally. Elena smiled gently, her eyes filled with quiet strength. "Don't thank me," she replied. "Thank them for giving us the courage to finish what they couldn't." Outside, a single gust of wind swept through the streets below, carrying the faint scent of rain and something softer, like peace. Morning sunlight spilled through the glass walls, cold and blinding. Gabriel hadn't slept. Papers covered the table, Old contracts, ledgers, and letters, all stained with the truth he could no longer hide. Elena stood beside him, her expression calm but unreadable. "We have to expose this," she said. "All of it." Gabriel nodded slowly. "My father's legacy, my company. Everything will fall." She met his gaze, firm. "Then let it fall. You can't build anything real on buried lies." The weight of her words lingered in the still air. Outside, the city stirred to life, unaware that within these walls, history was about to change. Elena found a sealed folder at the bottom of the pile. Its label faded, but still legible. "Confidential. Stone Enterprises. 1995. Her pulse quickened. She looked at Gabriel. "Should I open it?" He hesitated, then nodded. Inside were photographs. Sophia, Rosa, and Gabriel's father standing near the construction site of the company's first hotel. Scrawled across the back of one photo were words that made Gabriel's throat tighten. "She knows." Elena flipped through the documents. Payments to silenced employees, forged reports, proof of everything Sophia tried to reveal. Gabriel's hands shook as he realized the cost of his family's silence. "She was right all along," he whispered. Gabriel sank into the chair, holding one of the photos in trembling hands. "She must have confronted him that night," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "And he made sure she never told anyone." Elena froze. "Are you saying your father?" Gabriel nodded slowly, grief clouding his features. "He made it look like an accident. My mother believed it. I did too." The silence that followed was unbearable. Elena reached out, placing her hand on his. "Then let the truth end with you, not her." His eyes lifted to hers, and in that moment, something broke. Shame, anger, and finally, relief. Later that afternoon, the company's board gathered once more. Gabriel stood at the head of the table, no longer the distant CEO, but a man ready to dismantle the empire his father built. "We covered up crimes," he said steadily. "We profited from pain. That ends today." Murmurs filled the room. Marissa's eyes widened, but she said nothing, only watched him with quiet pride. Elena stood by the door, silent but strong, the truth's witness. Gabriel placed the documents on the table. "We'll make it public," he continued. "All of it?" The boardroom erupted, but Gabriel didn't flinch. His voice, for the first time, carried peace. When the meeting ended, Gabriel lingered by the window, staring at the skyline. "I thought power would protect me," he said softly, "but all it ever did was isolate me." Elena joined him, the soft click of her shoes echoing in the empty corridor. "You're not alone anymore," she said. He looked at her, and for the first time truly saw her, not as a symbol of the past, but as someone who chose to stay when everything else fell apart. "You remind me of her," he murmured. Elena smiled faintly. "Maybe I remind you of who you were meant to be." Outside, the sky turned gold again. The next morning arrived quiet and pale. The storm had washed the city clean. Gabriel stood in his office, no longer burdened by the ghosts that had once filled it. The walls felt lighter now, as though truth itself had opened the windows. Elena entered with a small box in her hands, the 2 rings resting inside. "They deserve peace," she said softly. Gabriel nodded, taking the box with both hands. "And so do we." The light caught the gold bands, turning them into tiny suns between his fingers. For a long moment, neither spoke. Some goodbyes are too sacred for words. They drove together to the old stone estate, the place where everything began and ended. The garden was overgrown, the fountain cracked but still standing. Gabriel walked ahead, his footsteps slow, deliberate. Elena followed, the wind playing through her hair. "She used to sit here," he said, touching the marble edge of the fountain. Said the water made her feel alive. Elena opened the box and placed the rings at the fountain's base. "Now she can rest," she murmured. The sunlight shimmered on the water, as though the past itself exhaled in relief. For a moment, time seemed to fold. The wind carried a faint scent of jasmine, the same Sophia once loved, and for a heartbeat, Gabriel thought he saw her reflection in the fountain's water. Blonde hair, blue eyes, smiling as if to say goodbye. Elena felt it too, her breath catching as a single petal drifted across the surface. "Do you feel that?" she whispered. Gabriel nodded slowly, his voice breaking. "She's here." The petal swirled once, then vanished beneath the water, leaving the ripples glistening like liquid gold. They stood together in silence, listening to the gentle trickle of the fountain. Gabriel turned to Elena, the weight finally gone from his voice. "You've given me my life back," he said. She smiled softly. "You gave it to yourself." The wind rose, scattering a few dry leaves across the garden path. For the first time, Gabriel allowed himself to smile. Small, real, unguarded. "What will you do now?" he asked. Elena looked toward the horizon. "Live the life my mother wanted for me. Maybe that's how I can honor her." The sun climbed higher, painting everything in gold. As they left the estate, Elena glanced back one last time. The sunlight caught the rings beneath the water, sending a glimmer through the garden like a farewell. "Do you think she forgave you?" she asked quietly. Gabriel looked toward the road ahead. "I think she already had." The car rolled forward, its wheels whispering over wet gravel. In the rearview mirror, the old estate faded into the trees, peaceful at last. Somewhere in the wind, a woman's voice seemed to laugh softly. Light, free, eternal. And for the first time, both Gabriel and Elena smiled without pain.